Hello, welcome to lesson 26. We're going to talk a little bit about asking direct questions in Greek. We're going to talk about how to turn direct questions into indirect questions. We're going to talk about alternative questions, and we're going to talk a little bit more about indefinites. So you'll remember our old friend interrogative tis. We've been asking direct questions in Greek with tis, who or whom, for a while. You'll remember that interrogative tis is accented. It's got these alternative forms, also accented. Okay. When it is disyllabic, when it has two syllables, it's accented over that first syllable. Contrast indefinite tis, which is an enclitic. And as an enclitic, it doesn't have an accent of its own. In a chart, all the disyllabic forms are printed with an accent over the ultima, but the truth is they're going to follow the rules for enclitics, so you're not always going to see that accent there. So when disyllabic enclitic tis does have an accent, that's where it's going to be, but it's not always going to have that accent. The one exception, of course, are these forms here, which actually are not enclitic. They have their own accent. Now, we're going to add in some new direct interrogatives and indefinites today. So, interrogative adverbs, another way to ask a direct question. So, pothen, whence, poi, whither, pote, before a vowel pot, before a vowel with a rough breathing, poth, when, pu, where, and pos, how. And all of these direct interrogative adverbs also have an indefinite form, which is enclitic. So the disyllabic forms are printed with an accent over the ultima, but they're not always going to have that accent. And the monosyllabic forms are printed with no accent at all. And we have pothen, from somewhere, poi, to somewhere, pota, pot or poth, sometimes, ever, once. So an indefinite form of when. Pu, somewhere, and pos, somehow. All right, so a whole new set of direct interrogatives that have an accent and a whole new set of indefinite adverbs that are enclitic. There are other words we could use to introduce direct questions. Now, since the very beginning, since we first learned that this could be a Greek question mark, we've been coming to the ends of sentences and saying, oh, wait, that was a question. But you can actually warn people that you have a direct question going in the beginning of the sentence by using the words are or are before a vowel. And these are just particles that show us that there's a question coming. Greek doesn't always use them. Okay, sometimes the only warning that you have a question going is this semicolon at the end. But Greek does have these particles that let you know that what's coming is a question. If you're asking a direct question and you want the answer to be yes, you remembered to lock the door, didn't you? Right? That wants the answer yes in English. You can use aru or ukun. So the same R that you had before, but with an U, or uk plus un. All right. So aru or ukun expects the answer yes. If you're expecting the answer no, you can use ara may or moan, right? You didn't eat my cookies, did you? In English, that wants the answer no. In Greek, we'd use ara may or moan. Moan is actually may plus the same un. All right, so ara and ar just show us that we have a question coming. Aru and ukun expect the answer yes. Ara may and moan expect the answer no. So here's an example of a direct question. Did you eat my cookies? That's a direct question. And in Greek and in English, we can do this. I am asking him, did you eat my cookies? That's still a direct question, okay? That's an independent clause. We haven't subordinated it to this verb here. However, in both English and in Greek, we can also make this an indirect question, right? I am asking him whether he ate my cookies. Now, this whether he ate my cookies is an indirect question. We've subordinated this clause to the verb of asking. So, direct question, still a direct question, indirect question. Okay? So, in Greek, if you take a direct question and turn it into an indirect question, subordinate it to a verb of saying or asking or wondering or perceiving, you can leave the tense and mood that you had in the direct question exactly the same, but you might need to change the person. So if we go back to my example here, right? Did you eat my cookies? That you eat, second person singular, right? I am asking him, did you eat my cookies? Second person singular. But when I made this an indirect question, I had to change it to a third person verb. And that may happen in Greek, but you can keep the tense and mood the same, okay? And this interrogative tis or ti or interrogative adverb, you can change that into an indirect if you want. So let's take a look. So if here's the direct question words, here are the indirect question words. So if your direct question had no interrogative word at all, then you're going to need to add an a, an if, in your indirect question. If you had one of these question words, right, one of these particles, ara or aru or ukun or arame or mon, you keep them in the indirect question. So that's super easy. If you have a tis or one of our new interrogative adverbs, you still can keep those, or you can substitute an indirect interrogative. We're going to look at those in a minute. If you had an alternative direct question, we haven't talked about this yet, but an alternative direct question, do you want coffee or tea? Right? That's an alternative direct question. In Greek, you might actually have a poteron or a potera, whether, in the first part as well as the or introducing the second part. Whether you want coffee or tea. We don't do that in English, but Greek can do that, although you don't always need the potera in the direct question. In the indirect question, you can retain this poteron a, although now you really need the poteron or potera, or you can have eta eta. All right, so here again are the direct interrogative forms of tis and ti, right? Who or whom. Remember, there's just one form for the masculine and feminine, another set of forms for the neuter, okay? And remember, it's always accented. So if you're going to make an indirect question, you can keep those forms, or you can use the indirect form of tis. Now we have separate forms for the masculine, the feminine, and the neuter. And that's because the indirect interrogative tis is just the relative pronoun hos, he, ho, right? Who, hes, who, all the way through, with the enclitic form, the indefinite form of tis. Okay? And because it's the relative pronoun followed by this enclitic, you can see it doesn't always seem to follow the rules of accentuation, right? You're not supposed to have a circumflex on the antepenult of a word, but it's following the rules for enclitics. Okay? Note these alternative forms here. Note also that the neuter nominative and accusative singular is the one form where we're not combining. the relative pronoun and the indefinite form of tis. That's the singular. Here's the plural. Again, just exactly what you'd expect. And here are these alternative forms. Note this alternative form too, hata, right? It has a rough breathing in distinction to the smooth breathing on ata, the indefinite alternative form. As for our new interrogative adverbs, here are the direct forms that we saw before. The indirect forms are just ha in front of these forms, and all of them are accented on the pedals. So that's super easy. Okay? And that's it. Direct, indirect, and alternative questions, and some more indefinite words.